Hi, I'm Euge Valovirta, and this one is about Tegeler Audio's Raumzeitmaschine, time-space machine. Reverb, which is a stereo reverb driven by tubes, and it has transformers and everything. Tegeler, they were kind enough to send this to me actually a few weeks ago, and I've been finalizing the forthcoming Cyhra album's mixes. The album is, I know, it has taken a long time, but it's 90% done. I'm just waiting for a few additional keyboards and vocals, and then I'm ready to send the mixes to mastering. And while I was doing the final mixes, they sent me this, and I ended up using this on every song. Mainly on drums, then some acoustic guitars, and on electric guitars. I'm gonna show you one song, a few examples of how I use it, how you can use it, and how great and a natural room sound you can get. Make everything bigger, fatter, and just punchier. It's a digital reverb in itself, but the magic lies in that it has those tubes, and transformers in the input and output sections. Very easy to use. I can't show it to you now because it's here and I'm actually, working on other mixes as well. So, but I'll put pictures. But the controls are really simple. Input, you can, decide how. If you crank this, you can actually drive the tubes pretty hard, so you get the tube mojo. Pre-delay, which is pretty self-explanatory, how fast the reverb starts. Is it immediately or shortly after? Let's say on a drum, it puff. You usually want to have it a little bit after. The size of the room, from kind of like small chambers to really big halls. Density, how dense the reverb is, the kind of the room reflections. Is it like open and airy or really dense reverb? The decay, well, that's the decay time, how long the reverb tails go. And then mix, I'm using it on the examples I'm going to show you on 10, because I have this as an aux or effect, track, and I'm just sending stuff into that, blending in. But this way you can determine, how much, if you're using this as an insert, so how much there's reverb, this machine, how much it is blended in. And if you turn this to 0, you still can take advantage of the tubes and the transformers. So it's because the unit, even without the reverb, it makes pretty much anything sound like it's going through tubes and transformers, which is always a good thing. All right, now let's go to the screen and I'll show you what this is all about. Raumzeitmaschine with drums. I use the machine on the forthcoming Cyhra album as my main drum reverb. So I'm blending kicks here, there's a kick sample a little bit, snare sample, snare bottom. I'm sending all of these, because I have these as an aux channel here, a little bit of those, then I'm sending a toms, and the most I'm sending the room sound to this reverb. So I'm gonna use this plug-in controller, so it controls this machine. As you can see, when I turn off, let's say, the dial knob here with my mouse, check out, hopefully you can see, the knobs move, and vice versa. When I turn the knobs here, they move on the screen. So here you can store your presets. I have these Cyhra drums because this was my main drum reverb on those mixes. So I'm gonna bypass this on and off with this knob. As you can see, it controls that one too. So this is really handy. You can have your own settings stored. Very good for recalls. Okay, first let's listen the drums without the reverb. They sound really good. The room is great where they recorded. Phil Hill and SU2 Studios, great engineer, great studio. Alex Landenberg, one of the best drummers in the world. But let's listen first without the Raumzeit space-time, and then I'll add that in and, you know, hopefully you hear it like I do. So the kick was without the reverb, a little bit like this. With the reverb, it's just bigger kick. And the snare was, there was a, you know, natural room sound, but with the reverb, it just made it even like really kind of thunderous. Really like this. This is so natural sounding reverb. It doesn't sound digital, and it doesn't even sound that there's like a reverb, which I like. I like that the reverb is that when you listen to a song or drum sound, that there's a reverb. But I would like people to think, at least that's my goal, that man, it's just a big drum sound. Let's listen a little bit more. The snare, kind of, and I use this also because there's these drum loops, so I use this on the drum loops also. Let's see where they start. It's very subtle on this one because this is a, you know, a drum loop, so I didn't want them to sound like they're in a room because they're, you know, they're not real drums, but I just wanted to make them a bit bigger and wider, and I'm using the exact same settings. I'm just sending a tiny amount of the signal from this drum loop bus to this, and then when we play these, you know, drum loops and the drums together, it creates, so they're kind of in a same space, which I like. Here you can hear this hopefully really well if I'm putting just this heartbeat bass drum. It's a bit boring, pop, pop, pop without, but with. You get the idea. Really good. This is, yeah, what can I say? To me, it doesn't, I don't want to have a reverb that, like I said, like sounds like it's a reverb. But this just makes the drums sound bigger, really natural. And because of the tubes and the transformers, it adds also a little bit of like this low-end mass, this like analog gear, you know, especially with tubes, like tube amplifier, guitar amp and stuff. Really great. So drums, yes. Acoustic guitars. So this song has a few acoustic guitar parts played actually by Jake. It's basically just like this muted stuff, and I use the exact same reverb. The drum reverb, I'm sending, or I was sending these two acoustic guitars to that same drum reverb where the drums are going and the drum loop. So listen when I bypass this, how they sound. and suddenly they sound like there's a guitar, actually two guitar players doing this in the same room with you. Great way of creating space, because I didn't want these to be, you know, like this in the mix. I wanted to be a little bit background. Again, doesn't really sound like a reverb in a good way. It just sounds like there's two guitar players in the room. Really, really cool. Electric guitars. I'm usually many times sending also heavy electric guitars to a room reverb, just to create a little bit of space. I mean, these guitars, they were recorded with real amps, real cabinets, what I have in another room, close mic'd, but played quite loudly, so there is a little bit of that woof, but I just wanted to have a little bit more space on these rhythm guitars, because these are kind of like, well, you hear how they are. This is kind of like a pre-chorus. So first let's listen again without, and then I add, and again, it's the same Cyhra drums, you know, reverb, because, you know, it's one unit. I'm just sending in, because it's on an aux channel here. So I'm just sending different amounts of stuff to that reverb. I really like that idea that I have a one reverb for the whole mix, for the whole band, so that they are in the same room, in the same space, all, you know, interacting with each other, working together. First, let's listen again the rhythm guitar, and this is on the rhythm guitar bus, stereo bus. There's 6 rhythm guitars, 2 5150s, 2 Bad Boys Marshall 800, and 2 Mesa Boogies Mark 5s on the Mark IIc Plus mode. They are coming every now and then just to highlight certain stuff. Again, very subtle, and in the context of a mix, you don't really hear it, but when I take it off, it's like, what happened? Why the guitars suddenly they sound a little bit smaller? Okay, while we're at it, let me play this whole part for you. There's other guitars as well going, but it goes like, the full part is like this.
I can see about repulsive leaders irresponsible to heal this fever. So clear this mess up, we can't sit and wait. The day the atom breaks. I can see about repulsive leaders irresponsible to heal this fever. So clear this mess up, we can't sit and wait. The day the atom breaks.
Small things, but the devil is in the details. When I bypass it, the guitars felt a little bit narrower. Then when I engage it, they felt a little bit wider. But it doesn't sound like, oh yeah, he added reverb. I just like, whoa, at least to me here. So very subtly, and also sending a little bit to a Dimension D chorus. But it doesn't sound like chorus, it just makes guitars wider. And again, I love this Raumzeitmaschine. I got this, like I said, I got this a few weeks ago from TEGELER for me to try out, and I like it so much that I use it on every single song from the forthcoming album, except the Ready to Rumble single, which is already being released. But all the other songs, I was like, man, who would have thought that you know, I would like reverb so much? But it's very unique, very natural sounding. Vocals. I didn't use this on vocals on this song, but let me show you how it works also with vocals. So this is the verse of this song. It's bypassed. I tweaked this a little. I can actually tweak this to show you. And again, it's on as aux, so I'm blending it here.
My mother told me I was half-part lion, that I should look upon the great Orion. Communication beyond the stars. Sometimes I feel I belong on Mars. My mother told me I was half-part lion, that I should look upon the great Orion. Communication beyond the stars. Sometimes I feel I belong on Mars. My mother told me I was half-part lion, that I should look upon the great Orion. Communication beyond the stars. Sometimes I feel I belong on Mars. My mother told me I was half-part lion, that I should look upon the great Orion. Communication beyond the stars. Sometimes I feel I belong on Mars. My mother told me I was half-part lion, that I should look upon the great Orion.
Well, that was a bit extreme, but you get the point. You can create really nice space, you know, Raumzeit, space, time, to vocals as well. So, conclusion, it doesn't replace a plate reverb or, you know, whatever, but if you're looking for a good, natural room sound, just to make things sound, you know, place them in your mix into different spaces, or like I did with the guitars, with drums, with drum loops, acoustic guitars, they were all in the same space, and I just blended those different instruments with a different amount of level to that certain space, so the whole mix feels like there's a band playing, because there's a band playing, but obviously there's also, you know, digital drum loops and stuff. Strong recommendation. It's not very cheap, at least if you're used to using plugins, but man, it's a fantastic thing. And you can also use it if you bypass turn the mix all the way to 0, so then there's no reverb, but the signal still goes through the transformers and the tubes. Like you heard, it made the kick drum, yes, it added reverb, but it also made it fatter because of the tubes and transformers. Thanks, Tegeler, for sending me this, and I got news for you. This will stay. It's great. Hey, hopefully you found this interesting and informative. More info about Tegeler, great products. I use there a lot of other stuff. Magnetismus 2, Creme RC, it's my mix bus I mix into. I'll put the links into their sites into the description below, so you can check this out also. And what is cool that you can try this out for free for 2 weeks. But I must warn you, at least what has happened to me, every time I try some of their stuff, I'm like, oh, this, I gotta have this. It's great, you know. The whole Cyhra album, you know, Raumzeitmaschine, creating space, creating epic room sounds, big drums, space to guitars, you name it. All right, until next time, take care. Bye.